Shall we build a Praetor? So welcome to the third episode, yes that is 3, the third episode of this Horus Heresy box set building project. I don't think we've settled on a official name for the series yet. We'll probably keep it fluid as we go along. In the first 2 episodes we built 40 tactical marines, I had to think a minute there, and 10 cataphracti terminators. You can see the previous episode here. Been really enjoying building this boxed set so far and looking forward to building the next parts. But like I was saying before, in this episode we're building this here Praetor. I decided to pick this axe Praetor over the sword Praetor to be my Praetor from the boxed set. Did that make any sense? I think it did. Anyway, let's jump in and have a look. We're stuck. Okay, so here is the little sprue that the axe Praetor comes on, and you can see there are quite a lot of parts crammed on to this one. So first up, I had a quick glance at the instructions just to see if there's anything worrying we need to be aware of down the line, but it all looks pretty straightforward, so we can move on. I then collected together my construction gear, my 2 glues, the affiliate link to those in the description below, my plastic cutters, and Andy the knife. Say hello to Andy, everyone. So the first step is assembling the rear of the body along with some other little bits. Let's cut them off the sprue. We now have the body bit, 2 bottom legs and 2 arms. Note there are no hands there. I reckon they might be moulded onto the weapon later. Now before we can glue the bits together, we have to clean them up. I used Andy the knife. And to please all of you out there who have been complaining about Andy, I do have a craft knife on my shopping list for later. Now be careful when you clean up the feet. There's a wedge-shaped nub which is part of the model, so don't cut it off. Well, you could do, but it might cause some issues down the line. Now using the wonderful Tamiya cements, we then glue the parts together. I do love assembling things, it's so satisfying. As you can see, we now have a solid framework, as it were, to stick the next bits on. This Praetor is coming together quite fast. Next up, we remove some more bits from the sprue. This time it's the front of his torso. Check out the details on that. Love me a bit of chainmail. Again, let's clean it up. I'm trying my best to be careful not to cut off any of that detail, like that belt sticking out the side or something. It is quite flimsy at this stage. We also have this little neck brace thing to stick in. It honestly took me a little while to figure out which way up it goes. Awkward. There we go, done. And as you can see, I've changed to a white background here to see if it improves clarity. Let me know what you think. Before we get ahead of ourselves, get it, ahead, we need to remove the head from the sprue. There's a choice of 2 here, a bare one and a helmeted one. I've gone with the helmet. Now let's clean his helmet up. Try your best not to slip and gash your fingers. It's fiddly work. So whilst looking at the container for the Tamiya extra thin cement, there's a considerable amount of directions on the back. And my favourite one is the one that says usage. Fit parts together, and if you're enjoying this video then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Darren. If you are enjoying the content here on the channel then please consider joining the Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere. We then have to stick the front of the torso on. and I also wick a little glue into any seams to make it stronger. Now, you're supposed to glue the head in at this point, but don't. Do it at the end so you can choose where he's looking based on the pose you glue together. Okay, so let's cut out the next parts. These ones appear to be shoulder pads and weird thigh pad things. Oh, and a magazine pouch for his weapon, I think. Here they are. Tiny little things indeed. Now don't sneeze here or your bits might end up lost. Cleaning up time again, and it's a little easier now as it's the shoulder pads and they are nice and chunky. Again, I'm trying not to gash myself. We then use our Tamiya cements to glue all those parts on. It is simple enough, but the magazine pouches are a little fiddly and hard to get in the right place. There we go, it's all glued together. You can see I've also glued the gun handle on. I've no idea when I did that. It appears the footage for it has vanished. More parts to cut out. By the way, these Tamiya plastic cutters are great. I did an unboxing for this what feels like 20 years ago. Feel free to give it a watch. The quality might be a bit shady though. So oftentimes you'll see me using these Tamiya clippers to cut things out from the sprue, and I have to say these are possibly the best clippers I have ever used in my life. They really do cut through plastic and sprues and things like a hot knife through butter. So again, using Tamiya glues, we stick the bits on. This time it's the other shoulder pad and the wrist guards. I believe the correct term for those is vambraces. There we go, all glued together. The Praetor is almost looking complete, but there's still a few more bits left to do. Now, whilst filming this, Wyatt became 8 months old, and I have to admit I have no idea where all that time went. It's going so fast, and I'm also jealous of his Optimus Prime. It's now the time to work on the cape. This bit doesn't look fun. There's lots of weird straight lines built in to flowing shapes, but let's see how it works out. Now be careful you don't cut any of the locating nubs off when you're cleaning these up. These are tiny little nubs. I secured these pieces together with thick cement to keep them solidly attached. Does that even make any sense? I then wicked in some extra thin cement and smoothed over the join. If you repeat this enough time, you can make that join invisible. Who needs green stuff, eh? It's time to cut out the next parts of the cape, and I have to admit I can see why some people leave the capes off now. Let's stick those bits together using the little locating nubs, as long as we haven't cut them off. Now, you can see here my join line isn't perfect. Again, we can run some more glue in and smooth it off, or perhaps green stuff it, or even leave it until later. Kicking the can down the road, if you will. This is a big chunky piece of cape. Let's cut it off the sprue. There's a nice big chunky attachment point on here. Let's clean that up as best we can. Oh, and remove any mould lines that we can see. Now, I was actually confused here. I couldn't work out how the pieces fit into the cape. It was like a jigsaw. I had to work it out off camera. You might see what I mean when you do yours. So after a little fiddling, I managed to figure it out and slotted the pieces into the gaps. You can see that the fit isn't the best. There's a few little gaps again that will need sorting out later on. I left the pieces in and then wicked the glue in. It should seep into the crevices and provide a nice, good, strong hold. Well, it should anyway. After a lot of fiddling and wicking, we ended up with this. It worked out okay in the end. You can see some glossy bits where the glue seeped in. We then glue the cape to the man. Some people might leave it off here for painting later, but I decided not to. There we go, our man is now a superhero. Who doesn't want a cape, eh? Very sexy. It's time to work on the backpack. So first up, let's cut it off the sprue. Now the trouble with backpacks is there's always a load of attachment points and mould lines to clean up. I hate them. Also, I decided my army will probably not be loyalist, so I'm going to lose those little Imperial eagle wings from the backpack. They snip off easily enough. Then the cuts need tidying up as per usual. Oh, and don't forget the mould lines. We can then stick the backpack on. This part is very easy. Also, again, you might want to leave it off for painting later. Again, I didn't. With the backpack attached, the Praetor is looking very nice indeed, and I have to admit I do like that skull trophy rack thing, but to me it does look a little like skulls attached to a clothes hanger. Now, I did originally consider getting a coat hanger like this and mounting some skulls on top. Hold on, I'm gonna have the bob down, and make a backpack with some skulls on to show you what I think that Praetor looks like, but I don't have any plastic skulls, which is a shame. It's now the time for the tactical rock. These things are very on trend these days. I do hate the term on trend. When I was a boy, we just said it was trendy. After we've cleaned it up, we stick it to the Praetor's foot, using that wedge as a guide. Now, aren't you glad you didn't cut it off earlier? Next up, it's the famous, or should I say infamous, axe. It's a big boy and needs 2 hands to wield. At this stage, we also have these tiny little round things. They look like the tweeters from a late 1990s Ford Escort RS Turbo sound system. Who remembers those? Well, that car culture all seemed to die out just after the first Fast and Furious movies were released. Strange. Now at this point, a dead spider appeared on my desk overnight. I'm not sure how it died. It probably died of boredom, waiting for me to get this Praetor built. I once used a dead spider for basing some Terminators. No joke. As you can see, I managed to get the weapon and the tweeters stuck on. They were very fiddly. I'm not joking, they were hard to pick up, hard to hold, and even harder to put in the right places, but we got there in the end. Oh dear. He's eating my finger. Now it's the right time to pick a pose for the head. By the way, my pose ended up being almost exactly the same pose as the box art. Great minds think alike, eh? So it's now the time to stick the Praetor to the base. And again, I used Tamiya thick cement for this one. We don't want him falling off later. Now you can't see it here, but I also wicked in some glue into the base joint. He's never coming off there. Let's hope I don't want to rebase him anytime soon. And with that, the Praetor is assembled. Now, it took a lot longer than most character minis for me, but I think that's because there's lots of tiny little fiddly bits. It was worth it though in the end. This mini looks quite good, and I can't wait to get it painted. So that was the Praetor from the boxed set, the Axe Praetor, if you will. What did you think of that. Have you built your Praetor yet? If you did, which one did you build? Did you build this axe one? Did you build the sword one? Or did you build them both? Or maybe you built neither. So after building that axe Praetor, we're now going to move on to the next project in the Horus Heresy box set building project, and that I think will be the Contemptor Dreadnought, so we'll see you very soon for that. If you do want to see some more episodes of this Horus Heresy box building project, I know you do, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. As always, thank you very much for watching, and always remember to drill your barrels.